In the middle of a vast desert, a young boy wanders alone, sucking on what looks like a human finger. Nearby, Wyndham arrives in his car, ready to photograph the upcoming eclipse. He explores the area and climbs to a high vantage point to find the perfect spot. Hours later, he successfully captures breathtaking photos of the eclipse and prepares to leave. On his way back to the car, Wyndham spots the boy crying under the small shade of a tree. Concerned, he approaches and learns the child is lost and has been separated from his parents. Wyndham offers to help and lifts the boy, only to notice his hands becoming unusually dirty. The boy starts walking deeper into the desert, ignoring Wyndham's suggestion to return to the car. Curious and worried, Wyndham decides to follow. Despite asking the boy several questions, he gets no answers. After hours of walking, the boy asks for soda. Wyndham offers him water instead. When Wyndham tries to guide him back, the boy suddenly snaps, shoving Wyndham before running off. From a distance, the boy smirks before disappearing into the dunes. Wyndham realizes his water is gone and attempts to find his car, but he's hopelessly lost. His phone has no service. As night falls, Wyndham seeks shelter by some rocks but can't sleep due to strange noises. Following the sound, he discovers bottles hanging from branches and a woman singing at the bottom of a canyon. Looking closer, he sees a house hidden there. Spotting a ladder nearby, Wyndham carefully climbs down, moving cautiously into the eerie unknown. Trapped in the canyon, Wyndham finally reaches the house in the canyon and knocks on the door, but no one answers. He steps inside and finds a woman, Alina, cooking. When he asks for a phone or directions, she tells him she doesn't have one. Instead, she shares some food with him. Wyndham isn't hungry and only drinks water while Alina finishes his portion. No matter how many questions he asks, she gives no real answers. After dinner, Alina invites him to stay the night. He feels uneasy but agrees. Later, as she changes clothes, Wyndham can't help but stare. The next morning, Wyndham wakes up first. He quietly steps outside to relieve himself and notices a strange painting on the canyon wall. He decides to leave, but the ladder he used to climb down is gone. Hoping for answers, he takes his camera and explores, finding more odd paintings, a cage, and an animal skull. Hearing a noise, he spots Alina fixing the roof. Wyndham helps her and asks about the ladder. She explains that people sometimes take it, and it might come back in a day or two. Frustrated, he demands to know another way out, but Alina insists the ladder is the only way. Desperate, Wyndham tries to climb out on his own, but it's impossible without proper gear. Exhausted and covered in dirt, he returns to the house. Alina offers to wash his clothes, and he reluctantly agrees. That night, Wyndham hears faint voices outside. He steps out to investigate but finds nothing. The next day, Wyndham searches Alina's house and finds bandages for his injured hands and a hammer. Determined to climb out, he tries again. As he ascends, the strange noises he's been hearing grow louder. He realizes they're boys' voices. Suddenly, someone throws down a pig's head, startling him. Wyndham slips and falls hard. When he wakes up in the evening, he's in excruciating pain. The hammer is embedded in his leg. Alina removes it and helps him back into the house. For the next few days, Wyndham is bedridden, tormented by pain and vivid hallucinations. He keeps imagining a boy wandering inside the house. Meanwhile, Alina seems unfazed. During her monthly bleeding, she marks the wall with blood, adding to the strange symbols already there. Once Wyndham starts recovering, he realizes he now has a limp and climbing out is impossible. Desperate, he goes outside and yells for help. The boys remain silent, and Wyndham angrily vents about his need to return to his normal life. He begs Alina to help him, but she offers no solutions, only saying she'll take care of him. Frustrated, Wyndham asks her to leave him alone. Finally, some boys appear at the top of the canyon. Wyndham pleads with them for help. They agree but first ask his favorite color. Confused but hopeful, Wyndham answers red. The boys leave for hours, and Wyndham waits in the shade, looking through his wallet and yearning for his old life. When the boys return, they toss down a rope. Wyndham ties it around himself, not hearing one of them murmur, he should have chosen blue. With Alina watching from the window, the boys begin pulling Wyndham up the canyon using the rope. Halfway, they stop, leaving him dangling. Frustrated and in pain, Wyndham yells at them and tries to climb, but his injury worsens. Hours pass under the scorching sun, reddening his skin. Suddenly, one boy urinates on him while the others swing the rope and chant in a strange language. Terrified, Wyndham pleads with Alina for help. She steps outside and scolds the boys in the same mysterious language. In their panic, the boys lose control of the rope, and Wyndham crashes against the canyon wall before blacking out. By evening, Wyndham wakes up in bed. He attempts to run but collapses after only a few steps. Alina finds him and calmly explains that the boys are strays drawn together by the desert. She tells him he now belongs there too and must stay silent and obedient to survive. Later, the boys return to the top of the canyon, spitting on Wyndham as he screams for help. Alina eats dinner inside, ignoring the chaos. Wyndham realizes he has no choice but to adapt to this strange, isolated life. When Alina notices his tattered clothes, she offers him replacements from an old trunk. Wyndham is surprised to see the trunk full of men's garments, hinting at others who might have shared his fate. Trying to stay busy, Wyndham helps Alina with farming, planting seeds in a small fertile patch of the canyon. His work is interrupted when one of the boys lowers a box of items. Alina quickly takes it inside. When Wyndham asks Alina where the boys found the box, she dismisses his question, letting him keep a bottle of whiskey. Over the days, Wyndham grows frustrated with Alina's quiet nature. She only speaks when necessary and avoids real conversation. When he complains, she takes the bottle away, saying he's drunk enough. That night, Wyndham hears the boys making noise and rushes outside, ignoring Alina's warning. Armed with an axe for protection, he searches until he sees one of the boys dressed as a woman, with the others laughing nearby. While distracted, the cross-dressing boy tackles Wyndham, licks his face, and calls him a slur. Wyndham shoves him off and runs back to the house, furious and demanding answers from Alina. Nervous, she only says he's scaring her. Wyndham keeps yelling, grabs the whiskey bottle, and drinks more. When Alina tries calming him and suggests he rest, Wyndham refuses, declaring he's a real man who doesn't take orders. Alina agrees he's a man and begins undressing. After washing herself, she embraces Wyndham and consoles him. They end up being intimate, though Alina seems indifferent, and the boys' chants echo outside. Weeks later, Wyndham notices the plants are thriving. While farming, a boy named Lepus approaches and asks about the process. Wyndham teaches him and offers to share more in the future. Lepus thanks him with candy, promising to bring soda next time. After Lepus leaves, Wyndham continues farming and uncovers a ring and some keys buried in the soil. That evening, curious about the strange life he's living, he asks Alina about an old picture hanging on the wall. When Wyndham asks about the old photo, Alina explains it shows the first mother, not her own. She admits she doesn't know much about the woman. Alina then shocks Wyndham by announcing she's pregnant but says she doesn't expect him to be a father. Furious, Wyndham accuses her of planning it and refuses to let a child grow up in such a place, calling her an inbred half-wit. Later, Wyndham hears birds attacking his plants and rushes outside to scare them away. Despite his efforts, much of the crop is ruined. Alina joins him, and together they salvage what they can. That night, Wyndham struggles to sleep as Alina sings softly outside. One morning, while running around the canyon to stay fit, Wyndham spots a plane overhead. He doesn't bother yelling, knowing it won't see or hear him. Lepus appears and apologizes for not bringing soda. Wyndham brushes it off, eager to teach the boy more about farming. Curious, he asks Lepus if he ever wants to leave, but the boy says they aren't allowed to leave the palace. Wyndham refuses to give up and tells Lepus about Alina's pregnancy, suggesting they escape together to form a family. Touched, Lepus agrees to help after the others fall asleep. Alina overhears their conversation and seems moved by Wyndham's words. Their moment is interrupted when another boy drags Lepus away. That afternoon, Alina tends to Wyndham's wound, which he dreams opens to reveal an eye. Startled, he wakes to find it was just a nightmare. Over dinner, Alina surprises Wyndham by asking questions about the outside world. He describes what freedom feels like and explains everyday things like cheeseburgers. Wyndham confesses to Alina that if he ever left, he'd miss the quiet moments they shared. Curious about her life, he asks about her past. Alina reveals that her mother told her they live in the desert because it's home to a mirage, something not real. Hoping to change her perspective, Wyndham shows her photos of the eclipse on his camera. While browsing, he accidentally plays a short video taken in his car with music on the radio. Alina, who has never heard music before, laughs and asks him to play it repeatedly. For a moment, their connection deepens. That night, Wyndham dreams of flames and the boys chanting. The next morning, Alina's scream jolts him awake. She's discovered Lepus' lifeless body hanging above the canyon. Grief-stricken, Alina yells at the boys in their strange language but angrily tells them in English this is not what brothers do. Wyndham tries to console her, but she pushes him away, blaming him for Letha's death. Realizing many of the boys are her sons, Wyndham is stunned as Alina grabs a plank and beats him severely. For months, Wyndham is locked in a cage. Alina only approaches to deliver food, while the boys ignore his pleas for help. One day, a hiker appears, and Wyndham desperately begs her to get help. However, the boys find her first and kill her. Wyndham breaks down, shaking the cage in despair, but Alina remains indifferent. One night, all the boys descend into the canyon. One of them hands Wyndham a peach, which he eats while crying. A ritual begins as the boys dance around a fire. Alina calls them her sons and brothers, even breastfeeding one regardless of his age. During the ritual, Alina covers her eyes with leaves while the boys drape a bedsheet over her head and pour blood on it. Watching this, Wyndham finally understands the truth. The boys lure innocent hikers to the canyon, where Alina seduces them to conceive more children. This twisted cult, started by the first mother, continues with Alina as the current mother. The blood marks on the walls represent the succession of mothers over time. The boys are either Alina's brothers or sons. One evening, Alina brings Wyndham a blanket. Desperate, he tries to manipulate her, promising to behave, give her as many children as she wants, and create a real family. Using romantic words, he pleads, but Alina sees through him. She coldly tells him he's merely a seed, and she's keeping him alive only until her baby is safely born. Sometime later, Alina wakes in excruciating pain from labor. Panicked, she releases Wyndham, explaining something feels wrong. He agrees to help, but as they head back to the house, Wyndham notices the boys at the canyon's edge and the ladder back in place. Seeing his chance, he drops Alina and runs for his freedom. As Alina gives birth alone, Wyndham hears the cries of a newborn and stops. Despite everything, he returns to meet his baby, a girl. Alina allows him to hold her briefly before explaining this girl will become the next mother. She thanks him for his role, but her gratitude is short-lived. The boys surround Wyndham and kill him by slashing his neck. Later, Alina places his belongings in a trunk with the other men's, while outside, his body decomposes, feeding the earth.